Okay, first item for discussion is the city county road maintenance and repair agreement. Funds for fiscal year 2024. James has got all of that information, so as soon as he comes back, we'll go over that. James and I have spent a considerable amount of time going over our road plan. And I think we've got a path forward.
So I do want to just, when we get started this evening, try to encourage all of our board members. I had an email conversation with a resident, at least, about those who watch the videos from home, or even some members of the audience have a difficult time hearing us. So I've tried to adjust the volume levels without creating too much background noise. But if we can just make sure we try to bring our stationary mics closer to us, at least when we're talking, try to speak closer to it so that we know getting picked up for those who can't join us at home. But aside from that, I'll go over to the our annual engagement letter with St. Charles County Highway Department regarding the expenditure of road monies through our agreement, our maintenance agreement with St. Charles County Highway for fiscal year 2024. Every year, we are required by August 1st to provide an outline of expenditures in the several categories, from snow plowing to slab replacements to asphalt overlay, plan restriping, joint crack sealing, et cetera, or any other potential planned request, and then maybe an estimate of unplanned work request. The reason for doing this is so that St. Charles County can, for their budgetary purposes, have an idea of what we're going to be asking for them to perform, and also to prepare bid documents. For instance, for the planned slab repairs, this would be St. Charles County putting out to bid on our behalf the slab replacements and the outlined subdivisions which we have here. These numbers, and I will point out, by the way, there was a cut and paste error there. Georgetown Park and Manners of Georgetown are on here twice. That being said, the total number still is the correct number from Excel. So and I'll need to take off one set of Georgetown. The Georgetown Park and Manners of Hanley Crossing aren't getting it twice. But besides that, we're expecting about $1.786 million in planned slab repairs. This is essentially the fourth phase of our current plan of action for the road master plan that was implemented last year in conjunction with our city engineer, Mr. Tom Weiss. We are charged based on a per mile amount for snow plowing. So that amount is based on the unit price given to us as part of our annual contract, which we've already approved this past spring. Our annual contract with St. Charles County Highway, and that equals out to be about $163,000. Right now, we're looking at least one, and this can change. Of course, this is for discussion this evening, but at least one large asphalt mill and overlay project. This is one that myself and the mayor and our city engineer Tom Weiss has worked on. I've worked a lot with St. Charles County on coming up with an agreement to jointly do Brook Lane and Oakside Court, which is scattered with unincorporated parcels. So there was some work done to identify which right-of-ways are the city of Garden Prairies and which right-of-ways are St. Charles County, and then come to an agreement based on the percentage of right-of-ways owned, how much each of us would pay for that work. That road is pretty rough. It's not the probably the most highly traveled road in Garden Prairie. However, it's deteriorating pretty badly. St. Charles County has indicated that they could put money toward it if we could. And so their estimate, we think, was kind of low for the total amount, or I'm sorry, was high. I'm sorry, was low.
No.
We went with the higher amount that Tom had originally put in the master plan. So hopefully it'll be less than this number, but we feel pretty comfortable with the 57% of the total being at approximately $228,000 for next year. Of course, all of this is based on, economic conditions and asphalt prices, et cetera. But given the current state of things, we're pretty confident. We've also set aside, based on numbers we've done in the past, and Tom and his team are still working on both some numbers on the lane miles for joint and crack sealing, but we're looking at putting aside about $60,000 for that, and then another $36,000 for restriping. That number could go up or down based on our needs, but Tom is working with that. His hope is, I think, to make sure that the joints and cracks are sealed for all the new work and all the subdivisions we've been doing to help maintain the integrity of that concrete going forward, especially all the money that we've put in recently over the past 2 years. We have been undergoing for the past couple of years a street sign replacement program. This is the next phase. We are, quite frankly, getting a pretty good price from St. Charles County to do that. We're buying the signs. They go out and put them up for us. They have the machinery to really put these up quick and in place. They actually have a, they call them the locates. They're able to they have a machine actually on a truck, when I understand, that just puts these poles into place. So in some cases, this has to be a pole replacement. Some cases it's just sign, but we're estimating, given their, again, unit price that they give us, $62 a piece, we're estimating about $18,600 for the street sign replacement. And then $20,000 for unplanned work request. Annually, things happen. Sidewalks need to be replaced, piece here or there. Curbs that get damaged. I'm sorry, not gutters, but guardrails or gutters. We get requests for street creep to be resolved, and so that's all done by St. Charles County at our work order request. So in total, this leaves us about $2.3 million in estimated expenses for 2024. The current estimate for available funds with the road and bridge tax, which is collected by St. Charles County, and then they keep essentially an escrow, and we charge to it every year based on what we have for work orders with St. Charles County. An estimated $357,972. That is the estimate at this time that would be our share of the road and bridge tax money. So ultimately, owed to them above and beyond what they already collect and hold on our account is about $1.95 million. So the rest of that money, the balance of that money, I've gone through last year's budget. Of course, we haven't even started this year's budget, which always makes this a difficult exercise because we haven't even talked about what we're spending next year, but we have to promise to St. Charles County what we're looking to spend next year. So for the remainder of that money, we're looking at taking the $357,000 from the road and bridge tax, the remainder of the $288,000 in ARPA funds, approximately $300,000 from the capital improvement tax fund. This again will be from annual revenues and not from the current balance of the fund. $600,000 from the special revenue fund, $200,000 from the transportation fund, and approximately $200,000 from the general revenue. So with the exception of general revenue, I would estimate that all of these would equal in the end, and they would be not a negative fund balance, or not a negative impact to the fund. Yeah, to the fund balance. So when I looked at what our budget has been, what our expenses have been, and what our current operating expenses are for each of those funds, I essentially I spread around the overage, the annual overage for each of those funds. So now the general fund, that's probably going to eat into it a little bit. That being said, it has been the policy of this board to spend down some of the general fund money towards the transportation projects that we've been doing. So that might actually be in the end about $50,000. We had been about $150,000 surplus in the general fund, so I would guess it might be about a $50,000 deficit to the general fund this year with this outlay, with this capital outlay. So with that, I'll entertain any questions about either the streets chosen or the amounts chosen. And I will tell you that the streets, these are again off of the street master plan. This is the phase 4. This really kind of brings all of the subdivisions. I won't say all the streets. There still will exist potholes throughout the city in some place or another. This will be this will essentially bring us to where we expected to be at the end of this process, and then put us into a maintenance mode from that point on, as opposed to a capital mode.
At the end of this phase, every red and orange rated slab will be replaced. Everything will go from red and orange, with, red being severe, orange not quite as severe. The yellow and green maintenance status, and the majority of it will be green.
James?
Yeah.
Is this any order in which they're gonna be completed?
No, I mean, that's all going to be up based on the contractor. So once the contractor, once the bid docs go out, once the contracts are awarded, it's going to really kind of fall on, whatever the schedule ends up being for the contractor. More than likely, he'll probably try to.
They like to have everything in the
Yeah,
same
cluster
area.
it.
Cluster it.
And the reason I ask is you've seen Westboro Farms, the largest dollar mine on there, which is really deteriorating fast. I get a lot of questions of when that's gonna be here.
Well, I mean, hopefully it'll be sometime March next year, March, April.
Other question is on the street signs. Does that complete all the street signs or is this just another phase?
This should be the third and final phase.
That I was curious about.
When do you expect that to happen?
Whenever-
St. Charles County is doing it, right?
Right, whenever they get around to it.
I mean, it's been 4 years. 4 years.
Well, it's been a 3-year, when we've done it, we phased it in a third. So this will be the third year. This will be the actual third year.
2/3 finished now.
Is that?
It's 2/3 finished.
Right. At the end of this season, it'll be 2/3 spent.
Okay, good.
That's all of it.
So am I right to understand if we have to return this by August 1st, that this first look at this is the only time we have to vote to approve it?
I mean, this is an administrative function, the budgetary function of the board is, we're coming to you for, approval of, this is what we indicate the board is going to approve for next year. So, I mean, again, from the city engineer's perspective, city administrator's perspective, given road master plan and projected budget, this is what staff feels is the best, best going forward. I'm happy to hear what needs to be, if there's a consideration for additional funds or why, but I mean, part of the road master plan was that we were going to have a plan for spending the money, and this is literally the 4th phase of the plan, and we chose that means that the city is accepted, and we went on to the 4th phase. So, I mean, yeah, we can change it tonight if we want to add more money. I mean, I don't know that I would say if the board wants to spend more money, then just direct us to spend more money, and we'll find more streets that are next on the plan. I think if we're starting to hopscotch around the plan for political purposes or anything else, I think that would be a bad idea. But we did we did invest in an actual maintenance plan. This is the next phase. If we want to go another phase forward, or if we want to go forward, I think that's, absolutely.
So my point wasn't necessarily the phases were bad. I'm incredibly happy that we have a plan. I think that's an amazing thing. Of course, each year we look at that plan and say, was the plan that was made years ago still applicable as it stands today? And we evaluate. It's really hard to do that with 3 working weeks. And we got this Friday after hours. We talked about this quite a bit. This is our largest expenditure in the city, bar none.
Mhm.
Having 4 days or 3 business days to get our questions answered, evaluate things, do our research, and make sure that we're making good fiscal decisions in the city, because it is the board's responsibility to set the budget and to make sure that our funds are allocated properly. It feels incredibly rushed to say we have just a couple days to look at it. And that the first time we really get presented with this information is an hour or two before we're expected to make that decision. I don't think that that is deliberative enough.
Right,
or
and
realistic, sorry.
just to kind of add to that, I think that we've had this discussion in the last 2 board meetings. And then we sort of collectively agreed that unless it was administrivia, we would do a reading in a meeting and then go to the next meeting for approval. So that's what we kind of collectively discussed as a board in the last meeting, if I'm not mistaken. We all
Just-
agreed on that, so.
Just so we're clear, this is an administrative issue. This has been something that the board has signed off on, which is the road master plan.
Approving
And-
$2 million is administrivia.
This is giving, we're not actually allocating the money tonight. So,
So let me ask about that.
can I finish? So is it the board's wish to go and evaluate the streets? Because that's what our city engineer has done. And this is the product that he's created.
Not questioning that. And like I said, I'm very glad we have it. I think each year we have to look at that and make sure it's still applicable. It probably is, but then we also have to look at what our budget is that year because things change over time. But let me ask, based on the statement you made, that we're not actually allocating funds tonight. If we pass this and we tell the county that we're going to spend $2.3 million for them, and then we change our mind later, what happens?
So if we decide not to go out for bid, and we've done this last year, tell them don't submit the bid documents.
So there's nothing that holds us to doing this work if we tell them in writing, we're going to do, this is the amount that we want you to.
So last year, this board decided not to go after previously, and by the way, you did not approve this last year, just administratively sent it. Once this went to St. Charles County, the board later, through the budgetary process, decided they prefer to spend additional funds and not to go through St. Charles County, but we decided to go through M&H.
Mhm.
We then transferred that money through the budgetary process to a contract with M&H and told St. Charles County that we're withdrawing our intention to utilize them for a slab replacement project.
So you guys can do this without board action.
I mean, last year it did, when Kim and I went through it, and that we said we should probably go on the consent agenda today, and that's why it is on the consent. I wanted to make sure we had a work session about it because it does ultimately, it is important to have a conversation both publicly and transparently so people can see the works that the city engineer, myself and staff have done and what has been now a multi-year process for moving through the plan that the city Board of Aldermen has solicited and approved to move forward on our planned maintenance. I guess I'm confused. I didn't know what additional deliberations or questions the board was going to have related to street conditions or costs. These are all things that are done by staff. Staff has reviewed and continues to update street conditions in real time, as well as costs based on per unit cost in the real conditions on the ground. So if the conditions change, the staff continues to change that. I mean, I think the real question here tonight is, it's as a matter of policy, does the board wish to spend $1.7 million and go through the next phase of the project? Or is there a desire to somehow maybe add additional revenues to it? Two things in particular, which we could discuss, is there are additional asphalt streets that are not included in this, Stony Brook being one of them.
Yeah, and I'm not
I
arguing.
can't remember the name of the other street.
I'm not arguing any of that. And you asked about questions and deliberations. I have some questions that I think are pertinent to this that
And I'm happy to answer
I
them.
think that, and I'm going to say them just a second, but I think that those probably take a little bit longer to do than 3 days. And that's one of the big reasons why I say we need to start getting this stuff earlier. But one of first question is, what is our minimum funding level for our general fund? I mean, that's calculated in. And if you don't have that answer right now, that's perfectly fine. But my
But the budget,
starting, is- what's the breakdown? You provided that, so I appreciate it.
so I mean, our general fund expenditures on an annual basis is $2,491,696. Last year, the revenue for general fund was $2,979,000 for a $500,000 overage. That's before capital projects. So once we included capital projects, we spent about $500,000 in capital projects.
Well, let me rephrase the reserve and then general. What's the reserve?
Right now, we're at $1.5 million revenue. Right.
So is it 2 times revenue or?
We're at $2 million over. We're not at 2 times yet. We're not at 2 times currently. We're at what percentage that's, we're 2.4 million dollars is our annual general fund expenditures. 4.4 million is our general fund balance. We have a $500,000 a year surplus to the general fund.
Okay, I thought we had said earlier, $1,000 surplus.
That's operating. So
Okay.
general fund included in this is capital improvements that we choose to use out of general fund, but not required.
Okay,
But if you're just talking about salaries, operating lights at City Hall, I mean, I've calculated that before. Our budget doesn't show that, but our general operating has been about $150,000 surplus. That's that's operating, but we,
and I'll probably have to go back and look up the revenue required or the reserve requirements. I have that just right, but if we're only taking 200,000 out of general, that's your breakdown.
we've said that we shouldn't carry any more, I think, than 100% reserve, I think is what the policy says. Is that correct?
Don't recall what it
I
is.
thought it was higher than that, but we tended to agree that it was too high. So I want to make sure we're respecting that, but then also looking at what the right side reserve was. But the other question, when you said 600,000 coming out of spec, was that the Prop T?
Special revenue entails. Pull it all up here. There's several different.
Well, I'm really interested in the bond money that we got from the tax issue that's on the ballot. How much of that is left?
The bond money is all spent. So right now, what we have is Proposition T creates or has revenues of about 675,000. We have some of the Proposition T revenue pays both for the certificates of participation, the debt service. The leftover money, some of it does pay for some of our in-house road costs, so the costs we do for some of the in-house work. And that leaves about a $200,000, a little more than $200,000 surplus of property
Okay.
money. So originally the conversation was that money should be allocated, obviously it has to be allocated towards transportation, but it would be allocated towards that maintenance plan.
Yeah, well, not just allocated towards, whenever it was put out to the voters, it was said to be enough to cover the streets. So that's one of the reasons I'm concerned is that's depleted. And now we're giving it the other funds when we told voters.
I don't think anybody was ever told that that would be the only thing that would pay for streets.
I will go pick up the recordings of those because that was absolutely stated.
So, well, just so I can tell you, my first day here, previous city engineer stated it would be about $1 million a year in maintenance.
Yes.
We never were going to have $1 million a year, even if we used all of Proposition T for that.
So, sorry.
Proposition
Let me make
$675,000, so
let me
you're
make
$325,000
really clear what I meant.
in the hole already.
Was it would fix the streets and then we would just take $1 million and make it so that the original program to go out and.
That's correct.
do all that. Well, I'm wondering where it is if it's all spent and we still have $2.3 million left to go.
I don't know what you mean.
Proposition T we never did say that the money, certificates of participation would pay for all of our street repairs.
Okay, I'll go
Yeah,
back and pull it up, but.
It was estimated,
no,
I think it was
wait,
estimated more than that.
There's no.
Well,
way
we didn't
to
have an
vote.
all up estimate back then. It was spitballing at that point until, originally there was but I don't want to belabor that one because there's.
Well, I also do want to bring up an important point. My first day here 2 years ago, we were paying $50-something a square yard for concrete. Now the county number's 78.
Mhm.
And some cities are paying over $100 a square.
Yeah.
So that alone will tell you the situation that we're in. I mean, that everybody's in. Street work.
Well, that actually is a great segue into my next question. Have we resolved the issue with the county contract that offers us price assurances that we hadn't been holding to. Have we gotten that language corrected?
I'm sorry.
So the contract as it stood and filled us out the past couple of years, they would send us amendment A, which I checked, couldn't find that for this year, but amendment A would be the pricing that was effective January 1st of the following year. Not that they would go out to bid the next year and tell us how much it is, but there was a price assurance for that amendment A. I think it's July.
In conversations that I had with St. Charles County, with Superintendent Raichu, with everything, they all said that there is no assurance of that price. So,
Which is fine, but we need to fix the contract.
well,
I would rather take the advice of counsel than the advice of a phone conversation.
I'm not aware of any
And
changes.
it was Drew that looked through it and confirmed that it did in fact say that amendment A is the pricing for the next year. And it concerns me whether we benefit from it or the county benefits from it, either way, it concerns me that we aren't in compliance with the contract and we aren't operating it. I think that opens us up to at least a conflict.
The only thing that would not be in accordance with the exhibit A that you're discussing would be the slab, the per unit cost for slabs, because that is bid out. Everything else that they do in-house, we pay the unit cost that is done by the county.
But then the slab cost is what, 90% of the cost? I'm spitballing, but it's not.
But I mean, we also reserve the right to reject all bids. So if we choose to go with somebody on nothing, we have the right to reject the bids.
Okay.
So I mean,
I'll
and if
have
they
to
only
go back
wanted
and look at
$100 a square yard, we would probably be stupid to do it anyway.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at that. I don't know the contract. It's been a little while since.
Remember what? I mean, standard
So
bid
rate
language.
to-
Oh, I mean, every bid, nobody puts something out to bid and say, whatever comes in, I'm gonna do it. It's,
Well, I
we
think that
reserve
was the
the right-
purpose of amendment A coming out, so that there was contractual obligation there. But another question, where are we on the 2023 work? How close are we to finishing?
oh, let Tom, I mean, no, he's,
supposed to start next month.
Have you had, well, hold on, Tom, have you had authorization to begin planning for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and was that granted by the board or was that?
It was directed by Jane
Was that
And I-
received?
recently. 2 weeks.
yeah, something like that. A couple weeks ago.
What's your
We have started that and well on our way. And our target is to have when M&H calls and says, we're ready for you. We anticipate that not to be until mid-August. Okay, spring, they weren't going to start any work in Gardenberry till August, and whether that means mid-August or late August, I'm not sure. But we'll be ready for them by the end of July, early August, with our plan. I would like to also point out that depending on what happens with the county bid and the amount of work, we will still be out there directing what repairs are going to be done. In other words, I wanted you to be, understand that the county doesn't have free will. And we have given them quantities. But I'm out there, or someone from my office is out there initially with the county once we say, yes, we're going subdivisions.
Is that with M&H, you mean?
Well, it may not
Either
be
one.
M&A.
Well,
depending
I
on-
was talking about the 23 week report, just making.
I was just kind of giving you an update on the future county work as well while I had the floor. But we'll be out there directing with the county, marking together slabs for phase 4. Just take the time.
Okay.
If I have answered.
Well, big question is, what's your level of confidence? That 2020.
Phase 3, I have. May not be completed until the end of December, January. Like we did last year, we were working into February,
Right.
but we did hunker down and get through it. So, a lot of it depends on when they actually start. I mean, the reason why the prices have gone up so much is there's less competition.
less concrete contractors have systems that MH have, so there's just not enough. And all the cities use it the same way. Fallon uses M&H, MCON, I mean, so it's.
Okay.
We're at a little bit at their mercy more than we might care to be, but we are still, especially with the pricing that we're locked in at with the remainder of phase 3, which is still below $70 a square yard. Which is comparatively, that's good still.
And is that price applicable to phase 4 if we wish to extend it or this?
I don't believe it is at this time because each has been indicated. Continue.
Okay.
Because of the fact that the actual material costs.
Okay, and does this final amount, what's on the docket for tonight, does that finish the, we'll say that the capital improvement project and put us into a maintenance mode?
It does, and as James did kind of come back and say, there are a couple of the asphalt subdivisions, but as far as the concrete subdivisions.
Okay.
But we are tackling a big asphalt subdivision that we were unsure of because of the annexation issues that James pointed out with county right of it. But when the county came back to James and said, hey, we're going to pay almost half of those subdivisions, then I think that was a good decision, at least a potential good decision for you all to share that cost with the county on that less traveled subdivision, but it's an opportune time if the county says they're going to step up and pay almost half. That's probably good enough.
I'll always be.
A couple of the well, I think James indicated Stony Brook, a couple others asphalt subdivisions that will not have been completed with that. But that's something that probably could be handled subsequent.
I appreciate it.
Hey, Tom, since we're on the road, we're talking about timing and so forth. This came out of our maintenance plan, right?
It did.
Yes, this is part of our maintenance plan. And when was that delivered to
Well, it
the
was part of the
assessment?
report.
Right. When was the first time that this was?
No, it's been like close to a year, a
Okay.
little bit less than a year.
So I understand that the
Big
board
last
has not
October.
access to this information.
I don't think anyone said that.
Well, I mean, I don't quite understand how, if we have a maintenance plan, we have it phased, we have streets identified to their conditions, why all of a sudden it becomes an issue of timing that you don't have enough time to go over this stuff. It's available. It's been available.
Because anytime
It's
we
like-
spend a significant amount of money with the city, we need to do our fiduciary duty and make sure that we're spending appropriately, getting the value out of the money that we are putting forward. It's taxpayer money. It's not our money. We are stewards of the money. We need to be good stewards.
We're making an estimate of what it takes right now. We're not in a budgetary process right now. Just putting out what we think it's
Well,
gonna cost.
I
So
question the assertion that this is a non-binding, just throw something against the wall and we'll see what happens if we're giving the county numbers from the Board of Aldermen saying this is what we're going to spend with you. It's a little bit more than just well, here's a slip of paper. We may or may not do it. But we want to make sure that what we're giving them is well deliberated and well thought out. Saying, hey, we want a couple of weeks to look at this for a $2 million commitment, don't think is unreasonable.
Well, I mean, I think the mayor's point is when this board, anybody who supported Prop T and going forward with this plan, the idea, of course, was that we would move forward in phases to complete, bring this up to a level that would be acceptable to the citizens of Garden Prairie. Mayor's point, I mean, this phasing and this estimation has been there for a year. So, I mean, I think the question before the board is, want to complete what was promised, or do you wish to do more, or do you wish to do less? I mean, I don't know what the I can't answer a question for you if I don't know.
So the
Well, what
question in
is-
my mind right now, when we talk about this is, what is our financial outlay right now? What is?
We
the-
won't know that until January or December of this year.
We know what our current financial outlay is. We can.
And I told you what it is.
Or we can get it pretty quickly.
No, but I told you what it is. I have it in front of me.
I hear you. We are discussing that right before we have to take a vote. It's not, it doesn't leave any time for deliberation. And it comes down to, big question here isn't whether we want to do that. We clearly want to fix the streets. It's how fast do we want to go? Making sure that what we're paying for, we're actually getting, and making sure that the contract we give is being met to our satisfaction. Maybe we say, hey, the county hasn't lived up to their standards because we've had the time to go back and look through it and check their progress and check the quality of their progress. So we may award to M&H or vice versa. We don't want to give anything to M&H. The county's beating their socks off. So those are the questions that take more than 60 minutes to decide.
But we won't know that until we bid it out. And as we did last year, we reserved the right to reject them, which we did.
Well-
And then we decided to go with M&H.
We should know their historic performance, and that's one.
Who? It's not the county doing the work. It's a contractor who's yet to be determined. But it is. I mean, the county is just the conduit who's putting together the bid docs. And then a contractor is going to bid it, and then we're either going to say, we'll pay that or we won't.
Managing the budget, managing the outlays of the city, and ensuring that we are getting the value for our money is a central responsibility. of the
Absolutely.
board. And that is what I want to make sure that we are doing properly. And so when I say we need more than 3 business days to make a statement like we're going to spend $2.3 million, we need some more time to look at that and investigate so that we get them the best look. Given the conversation that we've had and given the short period of time, we've already said that the board isn't necessary to do this. I am going to move to postpone this till the next meeting because I think that is appropriate. And if you guys decide to send this over to the county in the meantime, that's your prerogative. That is dependent on the discernment of the board.
I'll ask our city attorney because as we've looked at this in the past. It's been done differently in the past. Brought this to the board, but
But last year you did it without the board, right?
yeah, we don't have any record that it went. We have a record of it was discussed with you, but that was not actually like on the consent
Yeah,
agenda.
that's probably why I
So-
couldn't find it.
It wasn't a work session,
It wasn't a work session.
but then, yeah, there was no formal approval that we found. So I guess I'll defer to my city attorney's engagement like this. Feel that it would be necessary to have board approval or before we send this letter, because we are the county is holding us to August 1st as the deadline to let them know of our intention.
Right,
to get
it's just a declared intention of what the city may spend up to. Obviously, the board will ultimately have to approve it as part of the budgetary process. But not to do so in the budgetary process, you're stating you're not going to make those expenditures. Now, that being said, if the board says, no, we don't want you to do that, certainly.
I would agree. I guess I would like to know the board's intention if you're telling us not to move forward or if you just don't want to say anything. Because we won't be able to make any changes to this after August 1st. Now, I would venture to say that there might be some changes that could be made to the slab repair portion potentially, because that's something that has to go out to bid. And that's somewhat of an unknown as it stands anyway. The other work for the purposes of St. Charles County, they want to make sure that they know that like snow plowing, that we've made a commitment that they are going to properly staff and properly equip themselves for this upcoming budget. They want to make sure for street signs and things of that nature that, again, that these are issues that they're properly staffed for. Crack sealing is typically done by contract. That's another thing that we could probably opt out of very simply. And same with striping. But again, as they start to put those bid documents together for the upcoming year, they will probably want us to give them an answer if we're opting out.
Yeah, I think that we've got a $2.3 million contract. 2 million of that falls under the slab and asphalt repairs that would presumably be what you're talking about going out to bid. So $300,000. I personally think that that's fine to commit to. I think we're going to do that. We always have. The quantity of work. I have a hard time saying that we're going to do that at this point, at least for my vote. And I want to make sure that we aren't committing ourselves to anything, or that if we pull it back, we aren't putting St. Charles County in a position where we burn bridges or look wishy-washy.
Let me understand, this is not a firm commitment that we're agreeing to do this. This is just a projection of what we would anticipate that we have coming up. This is not an allocation of the money.
Well,
Correct.
and it's probably from previous years where we were told that it is an allocate, or it is a commitment and we can't go back on it. That I really want to go back and look at the contract and get unless
I don't see it.
Mr. Young wants to tell us in between,
I'll tell you,
workshop and regular.
I just will let you know, just from a process standpoint. So on a quarterly basis, we get charged. In the first quarter, they charge against the money that they already have, which is the road and bridge tax money, and anything that's left over, held over from the previous year. So in some cases where there may have been an overpayment or we've spent less than originally allocated by virtue of, say, the bids coming in less than had been anticipated. So they'll carry over that amount of money. But once that's done, then they start sending us invoices. And I will tell you, just because I had these conversations not too long ago about specific types of work or additional work. For instance, last year, there were some issues with the crack sealing. The mayor had noticed that some of the crack sealing work that had been done was, quite frankly, substandard. We told them just to stop, and we did not. We canceled the contract, and they didn't do any more crack sealing. So some of that stuff, again, this is more for them. This is about putting together the bid documents. It's twofold. It's about them preparing their budget for what they know that they're going to do for us. So both how much money they expect us to pay them, and then their costs, and then their staffing. The other part of that
Let
is
me
about
ask you a
preparing
question.
bid documents for other work.
Yeah, I think we're going a little bit historical.
What's the difference between, other than 2 days, whether we send it for them to get it the first or send it for them to get it the third, the day after our next meeting?
I mean, they
It's
reserve
gotta
the right.
sit on somebody's desk for
That's
2 weeks.
I mean, that's true. I mean, they reserve the right to say, go do it yourself. Which, by the way, they have made that statement before. When we've pushed back on certain things, they said, if you don't like the way we do it, then hire your own people to do it. That was their comments on multiple occasions. So,
Yeah, that's more asking them to do things that they would consider non-standard, like filling the cracks differently and stuff like that, not necessarily.
Oh, it had to do with slab replacement, and I have
So
letters.
you-
I have letters to that.
So that
effect.
whenever we tried to change the amount of money that we were spending, we're asked for a day or two delay so that we can conduct some work.
When we asked for
mean,
additional amounts of money to be added to their contracts, after they came back with a bid, they said, no, this is what you said you were gonna do.
Yeah, but not well. Go ahead and finish what you were about to say. That after we asked for more, we changed the amount, they said, this is what you
Said you're gonna do, then
Okay.
we're not going out for another bid to get more work done.
Okay.
Go out yourself and get your own. And
Okay,
there was a statement in the letter that said, basically, it's time that you should do your own bidding, which caused us to go to out for bid on our own.
I mean,
So-
one thing I would suggest, if the board wants to take a firm stand that they want to say no to this until further deliberations, we could easily have a quick Teams meeting. I presume that there would be questions posed in the interim that I could answer that would satisfy the board members, and we can just approve this if that's the wishes of the board. I would just encourage you, given all the data that's been, some of which has been in your hand for over a year, to give me questions to answer so that
I
It
would
would
like,
be a
I
quick
would like to
Teams
jump in
meeting.
on that point, because you just said something that I think is really important, because you've said it a few times that this has been in our hand for over a year. You said that this has already been approved. This is just administrative. But this is a new board and there's new members on this.
There's 2 new members, yeah.
And those new members have only been really aware of this for the past 3 business days. So, and we also have the same fiduciary commitment to the city and the constituents to spend the money correctly. So we have not had it for a year. I've only had it for 3 days.
I
I
mean,
still
public-
have to
it's
cast a
public
vote. So I
It
think
is public
that's an
record.
important point to bring in.
Correct. I mean, it is public record that's available. So I'm just saying,
And every
As
2
a
weeks, we're
board.
responding to another 100 to 120 documents that we have to filter through. So in my free time, I'm supposed to go through and just casually go through the budgetary, expenditures of road repairs.
I mean, I've been there, I know,
Yeah,
so.
we've all been there.
So I think that there is merit in what Alderman Costello is saying is all I'm.
You're welcome to, I'll provide you any additional information you'd like. I just encourage you to provide questions, and if you wish to have a quick Teams meeting here next week, then 2 weeks, or I don't know what, I guess next week, we absolutely can do that. That would make it easy if that would satisfy the board.
I think that kind of the first thing I said is we agreed in the last 2 meetings that we would do a first reading. And then only by exception and very generic administrivia issues would we have the second reading in the same meeting.
And as I said at the opening, this is an administrative issue. This is something that, as a policy, the board has previously approved. I recognize this is a new board, and since there are 2 new members, but without action from the new board, the actions of the previous board stand. So if you as a new board wish to go in a different route than the other board had planned, that's fine. But I only operate based on direction that was previously given to me in the city engineer. So if this board suddenly decides to change direction, then that's your purview.
Just for a little historical context, while it has been on the consent agenda in years past, not last year, but years prior to that, I believe, there has always been quite a bit of conversation, long dialogue about this, a lot of discovery and things like that, outside of the meeting that is voted on.
Well, I'll tell you that I wasn't here prior to that, but I can also tell you prior to this, you didn't have a street assessment, you didn't have a plan.
Don't I know?
I know. And that was the thing, one of the first things I saw when I got here is something that you've mentioned, and I've worked my butt off along with our city engineer to please the board and yourself, especially for what you've wished. I've delivered, and the city engineers delivered what you've asked, and now we're trying to deliver on it today. That's why I'm
I
just
will repeat
confused
what
with how it's changing.
No, it's the plan's not, the street plan's not changing. I'll say it again. I appreciate so much that we have data to work off of to make sound decisions for the city. That doesn't mean that we just write this one time and we never look at it, because there's other things on here that pertain to this, this agreement that I want to make sure that we resolve. This is the 3rd year that I brought up that inconsistency in the contract that I'd really like to either, 1, get the price assurances that the contract offers, or 2, to fix the contract so that we are in compliance with it and it is going out to bid.
Alderman, I will tell you this, the contract is already done. You and the rest of the board already voted and approved that. This has nothing to do with changing the contract or getting the pricing that you so chose. You've already agreed to it. So now we're just talking about an engagement letter.
Right now, you are saying that this engagement letter is anticipating a bid for next year when the contract that we have is not reliant on a bid. And I just want to make sure that what we're doing is in keeping with the contract.
What I'm saying is, if you want to go back and renegotiate the contract, you should have done that before you approved it earlier this year.
Well, okay, then we hold the county to the Amendment A. Can we get Amendment A
You mean,
for this year?
it was part of the originally passed contract earlier this year. You should
The
have-
Amendment A doesn't come out till May.
Are you talking about the one from the current contract?
The statutory amendment to the contract comes out every year, mid-year.
That one comes out in May.
Is it May?
Comes out in May.
And so was the 2024 on there? Because I don't remember seeing that.
The one that we still have, well, it actually technically still says 2023 on it,
Mhm.
but that's the pricing that they said. And again, everything that's on this sheet is based on that per unit pricing. So,
Okay.
I mean, if you're concerned about the estimate, I think the slab estimate was, it was 70 something dollars, but I mean, it goes in 80 cents, I think it is, per linear foot for crack sealing. I mean, if those are the issues that we're concerned about, you know, again, we can discuss those, but those are really a function of the contract. This is just whether or not we're going to use their services and to what level we plan on using their services. If we have concern about the cost of the services or the execution of the contract, that was an issue about the contract approval. This is really just allocating what this is giving an estimate on what we intend to allocate as part of our maintenance plan, which again, I had been accepted, I guess, by this board.
I think we're probably beating a dead horse at this point. I think everything that's said has been said.
Okay. I mean, does the board wish to have a
Special meeting?
special meeting or are you?
But I asked again, other than 2 days, what difference does it make whether we send it the first or the third?
Because the county then has the right to say, no, we rejected you had. They do.
It's gonna sit
They
on
have the right
somebody's
to do
desk
that.
for
So is
I
the
don't-
contract providing something not binding?
I don't disagree with you. And from a realistic perspective, yeah, it'd probably just on somebody's desk. I mean, do they have the right to say, look, we're just not gonna mess with you guys anymore? Sure, they can. I mean, I got a reminder today, hey, give me that letter by August 1st. So. Tom, myself, we've been working to try to peel through these numbers to look to see what we can get as far as crack sealing, what needs to be done. And come up with these estimates. I mean, all of that takes some time.
I want to be clear, we keep veering off from the concern that's been stated here to, well, we have a street plan, well, we've been working really hard at it and things like that. None of that, I don't question that at all. I know the city staff works incredibly hard on this kind of stuff. I know that the street plan is the best that we've ever had for the city, and I appreciate it so much. The issue here is anytime that we are going to commit the city to a large amount of money or make it a statement that we intend to spend that money, we need to make sure that we do our due diligence and we aren't there. And I'll leave it at that because it's been said so many times, but that is the issue, not these other things. So to the question of whether or not we have a special meeting, I'm not against it. I'd put it to the rest of the board what they think, but my assumption is if you go back to the superintendent and say, hey, we want to make sure that we give you the right numbers, what we truly intend to, and the board must be deliberative about this so that we don't screw up the bidding process, then give us 2 more days. And I bet you he comes back and says, I appreciate the consideration. That's perfectly fine.
And if he doesn't, then perhaps we can have a special meeting then and meet the requirement if that's hard and fast. Option.
That's fine. And I would encourage the board to make sure they make any and all necessary inquiries as far as additional information or data that's required or questions. I presume since you're doing your due diligence, you're going to have questions, but I've received none. So until today. So. Yeah.
And how much time do you want to spend in that, road plan? I mean, I think it
What?
needs to be looked at.
What road plan do you mean?
Our road plan,
This road plan.
our road plan, this road plan. Determine what you feel is absolutely necessary.
I guess.
I don't
we
think
feel-
anyone's voiced, we're going
Well,
back in circles.
then,
I think that's a distraction from the issue.
okay, we'll go to the county and we'll ask them for additional 2 days. Okay, let's move on. Next item for discussion is appointment of members to the Town Square Vision Steering Committee. I wrote up some bios of the appointees. I have them here before we hand them out. I want to just read a couple paragraphs here. As stated in the last work session, the board stated its desire to have a board representation of the city with residents and stakeholders representing a diverse set of perspectives who are open-minded and not seeking people with predisposed opinions. After reviewing these applications, along with input from the city administrator, I feel that I have chosen not only a group of citizens with a diverse background and a set of experiences, but also open-minded to having a thoughtful, thorough, inclusive, transparent process which will hopefully lead a community consensus on the vision of the town square area. Now, I'd like to hand out these bios and the reasoning for using these members. Yeah. He's down there, hand them out to anybody that would like to have them. Okay, in addition, I'd like to say that from the last meeting, I have not received one communication from the board about representatives they wish to put on, except from Mark. We discussed Ward 3. I know the board was pretty clear that they wanted representatives. They wanted to pick the representatives from each of their wards. I have received nothing. Absolutely.
That's absolutely 100% false.
How do you figure it's false, Mike? When did you call me? When did you tell me? When did
When
you?
I sent you an email with the folks that I recommended,
Yeah, uh-huh,
I'll have to look up the date. I
yeah.
mean, that's how they got on here.
And I
on
picked,
the list.
and I picked from that list.
So-
Okay.
So if you didn't get anything from me, I'm wondering how you.
All
got
you
there.
did, all you did was send me, you said nothing. You said, here's 2 more applications. That was it. You did not say who you recommended. You did not say, these are my recommendations.
I think it goes without saying that if I put.
Well,
some
it goes
words
without saying that we're collecting
Yeah,
applications, but
Okay.
you're saying that you're calling me a liar because you didn't give me any indication of who you wanted to be on that board.
It's that's a weird statement when I send you the applications to say, here are my 2 recommendations for the board.
You never said that they were your recommendation. You said
Okay.
here are 2 applications. Pull your email.
Okay, over 2 months ago, this committee was formed. It was said very plainly that we need to discuss the nominations, that you should bring your nominations forward and we should discuss it. And the first time, and I was even communicating back and forth with James saying, hey, we need to talk about these before. I don't want to sit here and argue in open session about this person and that person. I don't think that's appropriate. Let's talk about it beforehand and make sure that we're all of a like mind before we start tossing out nominations. And I find out that the first time that I see the nominations is when it shows up in this packet.
To have a conversation like that would be walking the line and violating the open records law by having that conversation outside of a public meeting.
We could do some of it in email with that is applicable to Sunshine, can't we? No,
Carl was
okay.
on the list and Carl was on our list as being a resource, but Mark Hunter was our candidate.
Was your pick. And you made that clear to me that it was your pick.
But did you contact any aldermen to see what their picks were supposed to be?
He put it on me.
No, wait a minute.
That's,
It says the mayor is to pick them, okay? We okay it.
and I picked
So
one
did you
based on,
contact-
based
Did you
on the
contact any
application.
officers? Did you
Based on the
contact any officers?
applications. No, I did
Okay.
not contact, he contacted me and said, we need to talk about Ward 3.
And our last meeting was to reach out to the mayor and James if you have any questions or concerns about the people gonna be on it.
So how are we going to do that if we don't know who's going to be on there? How are we going to reach out to him
Well,
and voice concerns about people that will be on there?
last Friday it came out, and that's when I proceeded to reach out. Well, I reached out before because I knew, and I was concerned about my residents getting his application in. That was the only reason I reached out to him,
Okay.
because I
So-
wanted somebody from Ward 3.
So I'll say this, and we're past time. This is my last statement on this one. We made it very clear over the past 2 months that we wanted to have a dialogue about this and that it was not wise to just come out and throw out nominations and expect that the first time they would stick. I have great concerns about the nominations and their ability to be objective. And for that reason, I don't think that this list is going to be palatable to me. I don't want to sit here and hash out individuals. I don't think that's appropriate to critique or criticize or do anything that would come across as defamatory to any of the applicants who are offering their time free of charge and with goodwill. So I'm going to leave it at I don't think that this list is sufficiently unbiased.
Can the board give some direction as to, I mean, I think the issue would be, if you're not going to have that a public conversation, I guess you're going to have it privately or secret. So, I mean, if you, I guess how
feedback.
I mean, I guess so that we can move forward with this, what would be the board's wishes to how that process is going to go? If not have a public or open or transparent, discussion about it.
I think
I guess how's the whole board supposed to do it? Because if
Uh-huh.
you do that, then you're violating
I don't think that the whole board needs to have a single conversation. I think that
just
we trust.
some members of the board.
Look, I think that each ward should have responsibility for nominating and approving people that are representing their ward.
Sure.
And so at the very least, that's something that the mayor should reach out and talk to each of the wards about. Second, I don't see anyone that represents commercial development in this, seeing that this is our commercial district. That is a skill set or a perspective that's severely lacking here. So if we don't have any applicants that have that skill, then we definitely need to seek them out.
So EJ Sandstone does not represent commercial development?
The only development that I know of is residential.
I think Debbie Haley is a commercial real estate broker
He is a realtor.
and commercial one at that, and business
Sure.
owner. And also Wendy Rackavan is also an 18-year employee of the chamber, who's heavily involved in development, obviously. I mean, developer, no, but we didn't have any developer. I didn't see any developer applications. But I think they did strive to get those perspectives through the applications that were presented. And to your point, I would agree. I mean, it would be nice to have a developer, maybe a commercial developer, but at the same time, you have somebody who does do commercial developments. I think Mr. Sandstone, Wendy, certainly.
James, we can't hear you down here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sure. Wendy Rackavan, certainly Debbie Haley, all have experience both in commercial real estate development, have been involved in that. So whether they're a developer who actually goes out and builds sites, or somebody who leases it, or I think we've got a lot of those perspectives represented, especially considering we just did not have an actual, we don't have a somebody from TriStar or somebody from, and even that would, I think we did talk to TriStar about it. I think there was some interest from somebody from TriStar, but trying not to have somebody who has an active application with the city, because obviously there could be issues with conflict of interest. So
I'm happy to reach out to the EDC. I think it's a great resource for folks like that and see if, because they're going to have an interest in this as well. Because this is their bread and butter.
well, we have the St. Charles Regional Chamber, who is also a resident.
Sure. They typically focus more on the development of existing businesses, not specifically to development of commercial real estate that we have there right now. And knowing what attracts, again, I think we're belaboring this a little bit. We are into the regular meeting time, so I don't want to prolong.
No, I think I just so I can help the mayor going forward, if the board's wishes not to go forward with the slate tonight, I just want to make sure that I understand the process very clearly that the board intends to entertain going forward. Does the board wish to have individual board members give their recommendations and give those, you can have those emailed to the mayor? Does the board wish to have that another work session to have a discussion? I think, as has been stated, it would not be proper to have this kind of conversation via email, out of the potentially violating open records laws. So in what way do we want to come to a consensus to make these choices?
One thing, and council will keep me honest here, make sure we can do it. If I were in the mayor's shoes, I would pick my preferred nominations and send them to each of the aldermen, have personal conversations about what they think about each of the people and make a informed decision based on that. Is that?
Starting with the mayor having individual conversations with each member of the board.
Let's just leave
It's-
it in that with the
it's
same
It's
subject.
starting.
I'm sorry, what's that again?
And it makes you, and this may be an offline, sorry, I didn't mean to exclude you. Go
Can you
ahead.
speak up, John, so
What I said is it's skirting the law.
Is there a recommended way that we don't? My concern is that if we're sitting here and we're talking about applicants in an open forum, we may say some things, if we're speaking honestly with each other, we're probably going to say some things that might hurt feelings, that might come across as defamatory for people who are coming in here with goodwill and really trying to help the city. I certainly don't want to use the dais where things are amplified to say anything like that. Is there a good
John,
legal way to do it?
You can sit there and smirk, Mayor, but I'll be upfront. A third of this list of 9 people voted for Prairie Encore. You think that I'm going to vote for them and accept them on this visionary? No way. No way am I gonna do that.
So you don't want anyone on that list that voted for Prairie Encore. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
So
It's not alone.
So you think the people that are against Prairie Encore represent the whole city? Really do.
They're the people, they are the people that behind the push to have this committee.
There's a silent
They were-
majority out there, Dave, that
Oh, I know.
Huh?
It's easy to say.
they're the ones that voted me in office. Okay, so let's just put Ward 3. Mark, Keith, we've got for Ward 3 representative, we've got Jack Valentine. Jack? Like to say, are you okay with Jack?
I think we're.
No, because we're just public. I just want to say, are you okay
I'm
with Jack?
too close
Because
to
if
work
not,
out.
then we're, huh?
I have no idea who Jack Valentine is. other
He's
than
right,
tonight.
he's right here. Okay,
That's the
He-
point. I think that's the point, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. I think that's the point, Mr. Mayor, is there was no background or understanding other than an email on Friday with the rest of the packet saying, here are the people that you have selected. It's a take it or leave it. It's all or nothing. And nobody except apparently you and one other alderman had, understanding of who was going to be on that list.
so you didn't
That's
get,
what I'm
you
understanding.
didn't get the applications. You did not get the applications. Is that what you're telling me? Prior to any of this? You did not get a copy of the
We're getting
13
a little too
applications.
confrontational for a work session.
I'm just saying, I need to understand. what we do.
So close the workshop.
Back at
So do I have a second? Close the workshop.
Second.
Without understanding what
I
the
did
board
say
wants.
motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none, we'll close the workshop. Session.
That was not shown.
Yeah, well, I put it in the developers lab.
Yeah.
As far as how.
Like, different zoning, we did they have two options. They could, crazy enough, they could do C3 or they could do RM. And then it's C3 with that. So. Yeah. So, and I told I needed to. So. Yeah, so I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. Well, Tom hadn't finished his review yet, and quite frankly, when I looked at it, I was reading it already. I was reading all the residential markets. So, I guess it's okay. It's then I'm getting John. So I go to.
Yeah, our.
So it's weird. Because
Whatever.
So
red.
yeah, if you identify that's a year done. So it's like if they were, even if they're nice. But town homes by definition have facts where age insecure.
Right.
Some of these. So I told him, I said, you can either refile this with all 8 buildings, and you call these townhomes. Or and keep it all one D, or you're gonna have to change to RM, or go to C3 PUD. So that balls in their, yeah, so they could just tell me, but they could amend their site plan and say, look, we're gonna take all this down to the buildings, and then we'll just call it. Because by the code, that all this definition. All right. And I appreciate it. We're in gray area, you know. Yeah, I mean, we did all research. It was kind of like a drop. Everything. Oh, crap, how are we gonna get this together? So I appreciate you bringing that up. It's a good catch. So who caught it? Yeah. Well, because they're, you know, they're billing this still as single family, but it's, you know, not. You know, and it's weird again, because we allow villas, like attached villas, and we allow townhouses in single family. And they're kind of single family, but they're kind of not. I mean, these all do have, you know, exterior entrances. There's no shared hallways or anything like that. So, you know, but that's not how the code defines it. So that's, yeah. I don't know, after this, because I know there's other people that want to do certain things, we might have to, planning and zoning might have to have a work session to try to come up with some new definitions for some of these things. Even the villas, it's not clear on, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the meetings are.
I don't see any consensus.
They'll hold on to my questions for training.
Okay.
I
Thank you, sir.
Oh, my work is so loud.
Oh, see, that's. Yeah, that's.
That's good. So you probably. For the contractor can't see. So you talk about your own driving.
And I was the one of.
Right now.
That's the camera part. You know, it didn't want us about I know.
But we also have the use it or lose it.
Right, yeah, good figure.
So I don't get material.